There's a strange moment that happens in certain horror films. Not when something jumps out, not when the music swells, but when you stop watching. You're no longer thinking about the shots, performances, or story. You're not analysing anything, you're just there. And the line between fiction and reality starts to blur. That's the moment you forget you're watching a film. Most horror keeps a safe distance. It reminds you that this is fiction, that you're allowed to be scared because none of this is real. Other films try to play with your mind, using phrases like based on a true story to squeeze out a bigger reaction. Then there's the Blair Witch Project. It doesn't really do either of those things. It exists in its own lane of found footage, with no safety net. It doesn't tell you how to feel, it doesn't reassure you that everything is under control. Instead, it lets the fear creep in slowly, and by the time you realise what's happening, you're no longer watching the film, you're experiencing it. What makes the Blair Witch Project so different isn't the story it tells, it's the way it tells it. From the very beginning, the film is defined by its limitations. The cameras are cheap, the image is unstable, the framing is frequently wrong, faces move out of shot, focus slips. Sometimes the camera is just pointed at the ground, or the sky, or just nothing at all. In most films, these would be considered mistakes, but here, they're the foundation of the whole film. The camera doesn't behave like a cinematic tool. It doesn't feel expressive or composed. It feels reactive. It behaves like a person trying to document something, whilst also being afraid of it. And that distinction matters, because the moment the camera stops feeling intentional, it simply stops feeling like a film. There's no visual hierarchy telling you what to look at or how to feel. No establishing shots to orient you. No clean compositions to reassure you that this is in fact a film. The forest is framed awkwardly and consistently until it becomes anonymous. And what I mean by that is that every tree starts to look the same. Every path feels interchangeable. It gives us no sense of direction. And over time, visual confusion becomes psychological. What happens to the people in the film is happening to us, the audience, at the exact same time. Cinematography here isn't about beauty or meaning, it's about restriction. The camera is limited by panic, it's controlled by the characters, and it can only show what they allow it to show. When something might be happening off screen, the camera often fails to capture it, not because it's hiding information, but because it simply can't. That inability is unsettling. You're constantly aware that whatever danger exists may already be there, just beyond the edge of the frame. Sound design deepens that feeling. There's no score at all, no music cues to signal danger, relief, or escalation. Without music, the film loses one of cinema's most powerful tools for emotion, tension, and release. This makes every sound you hear in the Blair Witch even more powerful. The sound of a twig snapping, wind blowing, or a distant scream. They're all more impactful and menacing. The forest becomes defined not by what you see, but by what you hear. The disconnection between sound and image creates a constant state of uncertainty. Your brain searches for explanations that never arrive. Silence too becomes hostile. In the absence of music, quiet moments don't feel calm, they feel exposed. There's nothing to soften the experience, nothing to let you know when to expect something, nothing to hold your hand. The direction and performances follow the same philosophy of restraint. Arguments are left in full, awkward pauses aren't cut away from, characters repeat themselves, get frustrated, say the wrong thing, stutter. This all reinforces the idea that this is becoming more than just a film experience. The panic doesn't come from a singular dramatic beat. It comes from the slow rise, the exhaustion, the irritation. You're forced to sit with the discomfort rather than just move past it. And time plays a crucial role here. The walking feels endless, the days blur together. The film allows boredom to exist, which is something usually avoided. But that boredom is so important for the film. It makes the moments of fear feel unplanned and invasive rather than constructed. And well, if anything, it actually makes the whole film have this underlying tone of fear, this ominous tone that anything could happen, anything could go wrong at any point. One of the most unsettling aspects of the film is how little it seems to want your attention. It doesn't escalate constantly, it doesn't demand engagement, instead it asks you for patience. It feels like something should happen, it feels like it's building to something. And that creates this strange intimacy. You begin to share the characters' frustration, their confusion, their fatigue. You're not watching events unfold, you're part of the scene. And over time, these elements combine to something greater. The unstable imagery, unreliable sound, unfiltered performance, jarring and strange tone of the film. It creates a subtle shift. You stop thinking about structure, you stop waiting for the payoff. The film trains you to accept uncertainty as the norm, and once you do that, the experience changes completely. The footage no longer feels like something designed for you, it feels like something you're intruding on, like material that wasn't meant to be shown, explained, or resolved. Something recovered, not created. And that's where the fear really takes hold. And once that fear is in, the line between observer and participant begins to quietly disappear. Before anyone even sat down in a cinema to watch the film, the story was already painted as real. Missing person posters appeared. Early websites presented the events as facts. There was no clear reassurance that this film was fiction. No moment where the audience is told to relax and enjoy the show. Even the actors were treated as if they had genuinely disappeared. This wasn't marketing designed to excite. It was designed to unsettle. It created doubt rather than hype. And by the time people watched the film, the question wasn't, is this scary? But it was, what if this actually happened? That uncertainty changes everything. Once the audience accepts the possibility, even subconsciously, the film no longer needs to prove itself. The footage feels heavier, the fear feels earned. You're not watching a constructed narrative, you're examining something that might be evidence. And that's what makes this experience so powerful. The marketing didn't explain the film, it completed it, and by the time the first frame appears, the illusion is already in place. By the time the Blair Witch Project reaches its final moments, it feels less like a climax and more like inevitability. There's no sense of escalation in the traditional way, no dramatic reveal, no final confrontation. The film doesn't build towards an ending, it simply collapses into one. The house doesn't feel like a destination, it feels like a mistake, an intrusion somewhere you shouldn't be. The camera becomes more frantic, less reliable, and then suddenly it stops. Not with a resolution, but with an absence. The final image isn't shocking because of what it shows, it's disturbing because of what it refuses to give you. There's no explanation, no release, no sense that the story has been safely wrapped up. The film doesn't end, it just stops recording. That lack of closure is crucial because horror usually offers some form of relief, even if it's temporary, a release of tension, a chance to breathe. The Blair Witch Project denies you that entirely. It leaves the experience unfinished, unresolved, much like real fear. There's no confirmation of what happened, only the implication that something went terribly wrong. And that's why it lingers. The fear doesn't dissipate when the credits roll, because the film never signals to you that it's over. There's no moment when the actors step out of character, no tonal shift that tells you it's safe to return to reality. The illusion holds you, and you're left sitting with the feeling that what you've seen is something you weren't meant to see. That emotional residue is the film's true legacy. In the years that followed, found footage became a genre. Countless films borrowed the aesthetic, shaky cams, improvised performances, first-person perspective, but very few managed to capture the same effect. Because what most of them copied was the style, not the commitment. They explained too much, they reassured too often. They reminded the audience that they were watching a movie. The Blair Witch Project never does this. Its legacy isn't just that it proved you could make a horror film cheaply, it's that it showed how powerful restraint can be. How trusting the audience and refusing to guide them can be far more unsettling than any visual spectacle. When people talk about the Blair Witch Project, they often focus on what it started, a genre, a marketing phenomenon, a moment in film history. But what makes it endure isn't what it created, it's what it took away. It removed the safety net, it removed reassurance, it removed the comfort of knowing where you stand, and in doing so, it created a rare kind of horror, one that doesn't feel performed or contained, but experienced. A film that doesn't scare you by showing you something frightening, but by making you forget that you're safe. Because when the audience forget they're watching a film, fear stops being fiction, and it becomes personal.